brothers and sisters, the subject of the discourse is Buddha said that unless you know and see, I would not preach you the path for your liberation. What should you know and see? The 5 aggregates is dukkha. The 5 aggregates is the cause of dukkha. The 5 aggregates, cessation of such aggregates is your liberation. And the path leading to the liberation is the Eightfold Path. Let us first analyze what are these 5 aggregates which he is referred to. 5 aggregates, brothers and sisters, is a thought you produce. The thought that enables you to hear, enables you to see, enables you to smell, enables you to identify a taste, enables you to contact and think. In other words, all your sense bases are put into operation as a result of a creation of a thought. And it is in that thought that you have the 5 aggregates. In order to understand how the 5 aggregates create a thought in you to perform the activities of the 6 sense bases, let us take an example. Take the case of the eye. Your eye must be in good condition for you to see something. There must be sufficient light to see something. When those 2 conditions are suitable for you to see, an object must appear before the eye, and that is a form. When that object appears before the eye, the reflection of that object is cast in the retina of the eye. That is the first contact the eye has with the object. The third party that appears in the scene is your consciousness. This consciousness by itself cannot perform the creation of a thought. It has to issue 5 mental factors. They are contact, feeling, perception, and volition. There is the 5th, which is attention, is merely the activity in the case of providing matter for the creation of a thought. That does not make any difference at all, it's only a function in the creation of a thought. Therefore, we only consider the first 4, that is contact, feeling, perception and volitional activity, and the consciousness. As a result of the contact, you find the eye comes into contact with the object. Yes, the retina of the eye is the contrivance through which the object is reflected in the eye. The second mental factor that is produced is feeling. That is, you are made to feel whether you like that object or you do not like that object. The third action is perception, that is identification of the object. Maybe object that you know very well, therefore you could identify it clearly. Or it may be object that you have never seen before. So naturally you would make inquiries to find out what that object is. Anyway, the third mental factor that occurs is the identification, the perception. Then the volitional activity takes place, that is, the eye will perform the act of seeing. As a result of a thought being created by the consciousness. Consciousness is mental energy. Now Buddha says, his consciousness creating thought is the creation of a deception in you. Though you see something with your eyes, but that vision will not help you to really understand what you see. You may see something, but that is not the truth. And in order to clearly make you understand how this process of a thought is created, Buddha gives clear illustrations for you to exactly evaluate or value each of those activities of the mind in the creation of a thought. His illustration of consciousness is that is a magician. Don't have any trust in him. He always creates things which are not true and mislead you. That is a consciousness. Mental factor contact, he says, can be compared to a collection of foam. And there is the flow of water, and if there is an obstruction of that flow, as a result of the water contacting that obstruction, there are bubbles of water created there, and the collection of those creates a form. Now that mental factor contact is like a collection of form. There is no substance in that form. Then you come to feelings. Feelings, Buddha says, illustration given to understand feelings is when a drop of rain falls on a hard surface, a bubble is created. But that doesn't last long. It's created and it bursts. That's the feeling. Mental factor, perception, he says a mirage. You know what a mirage is. During what part of the day, you see a stretch of water ahead of you when you are walking on the road. But when you go to that spot, that disappears. And there it arises somewhere else ahead of you. It's just a mirage only. And he compares the volitional activity which you commit to a plant and tree leaf, the force of which forms the trunk of the plant and tree. This illustration he describes further that villagers go to enter the jungle in search of hardwood. They searched for hardwood, they could not find any hardwood. They saw some well-grown wild plant and trees with a good girth in the, let's say, in the trunk and straight, and the villagers thought that these would have the hardwood they searched for. They cut these trees and carried the trunk home and split the trunks to find out whether there is any hardwood there. They couldn't find any except the foldings, the leaves and so on. That is the evaluation given by Buddha about the thought that is created to enable to see, about the thought created to enable you to hear, about the thought that created to enable you to taste something. And for the performance of the six sense basis, a thought is created. It is a thought that helps you to see and hear and smell and taste and contact and think. That is the value of the thought you create. So Buddha says, unless you know and see for yourself, you will not be shown the path for your liberation. because you have been deceived by the six sense bases, by the creation of a thought of that nature. And you believe the thought, you believe what you see, you believe what you hear, you believe what you, let's say, taste, contact, because that's your activity. Your sense bases completely cover all your activity as a human being. There's nothing more that you can do, brothers and sisters, except the performance by the six sense bases. And that performance is done as a result of a thought being created by you. So what Buddha says is, you must know and must see also. Not only knowing is sufficient, but you must be able to realize this is the thought that enables us to perform the activities of the six sense bases. A complete deception. Now, he goes further. What should you know and see? You should know and see that all your suffering is a result of the five aggregates, number one. You should know and see that the cause of your suffering is the five aggregates. You should know and see that the cessation of your suffering is the cessation of the five aggregates. And the path you have to follow to develop yourself to that extent, to get rid of this performance, the path is the Eightfold Path. Now I shall explain to you why should you know and see suffering as the five aggregates. How is it that the five aggregates perform this task of suffering for you? We all have not only one birth, brothers and sisters, we have been born several times. Should say millions of times in different aspects, you see, different parts, different ways of existence. When you think of the last birth, how did you part from that condition to create another condition like this here? Just analyze that. At the time you come to the end of your span of life, your body must perish. Before that occurs, you see that the life that is enabling you to perform activities by the legs and the hands, all that ceases. They grow cold, and only this area is left. And that is the area where you can create a thought. What is the object of that thought? That is the occasion when one of your commitments in the past has come. You begin to realize, you begin to see. No one can say how it happens, whether you see a good karma or a bad karma, and how this can be avoided or prevented. That's the way of karma. It all depends upon, you see, whether you have done more good karma or more bad karma. If you have done more bad karma, naturally a bad karma will be the last thought that will be created in your mind. If it's a good karma that you have created, then certainly one of the acts of the good karma reflects in your mind, and that's the last thought that you create. You can well imagine, brothers and sisters, if you see something horrible which you have done in your life. Let's take the example. You take a club and then attack a dog, and you kill that dog. You repent for the act you have committed. And that thought may not disappear from you for some time because it makes you feel horrible. And you ask the question, why did I do this act? Why should I kill that innocent dog? And it gets well planted in your mind. Maybe for the moment, you may not think about it, but at the time of death, that is the very thought that arises. Not only the thought, brothers and sisters, you see the very vision of what you have done there. You see, taking the club and attacking that dog and killing that dog. Now when that thought arises in your mind, when the consciousness catches that object as the object of the thought, the last thought, you can well imagine the condition of your mind at the time of parting that body. A depressed mood has occurred in your consciousness at a last thought. In the normal condition of your thought, it has gone far down because the depressed mood you have created. And when the parting takes place, you see, you leave the body and his consciousness leaves and gets born in another birth, you see. You can imagine the type of existence you are going to get befitting that thought. Very poor existence. Maybe you may even lose your human form and may reduce yourself to an animal form because the depressed feeling you feel at that time. On the other hand, the last thought is something which you have been very, very happy about recollecting very often. Let's say, done a good act, maybe a pilgrimage, or maybe that you have given alms to the poor people and satisfied them. Some such thing which you have always been recollecting very often. I did this, I did this, I did this. And that's the last thought that occurs in your mind. You are very happy about it. The mind does not remain in that normal condition he normally has, but as a result of this good thought occurring in you, it gets elated. I mean, happy. That happiness raises the condition of the mind to a higher level. And if the parting takes place at that time, you are born in a good place, brothers and sisters. Very often we make a note of all the good deeds we do, we perform. And we expect those relations and others who are around us at the time of our parting, make them to read what you have done in the past, you see, so that you would hear the good deeds that you have done, and you create a good thought in your mind at the last parting thought, which gives you a befitting birth in the next birth. Now what is that thought? Let us analyze the thought you created as a result of the object that has pictured in your mind. It's a mental picture that you saw of a past act. That thought is nothing but the five aggregates, brothers and sisters. Aggregate of form, aggregate of feeling, aggregate of perception, aggregate of volitional activity, and the consciousness. So, when you are born in the next world, is the same thought that you had in the previous birth that continues to be born there in the next new birth. In this birth where you are now, you have been subject to suffering. And you know that the thought is the forerunner of all your activities. You suffered as a result of the creation of thoughts in you. And it is the same thought, same power of mind that got transferred to the next birth, you see. That there too you have the five aggregates. That is why Buddha said that five aggregate is suffering. There too will be suffering as we did before. Because the five aggregate is the basis on which you create thought for all your activities. And the five births, the five aggregates is suffering and nothing else. Now you can understand how the suffering takes place as a result of a process of thinking occurring in you in the same condition as you had before when you were subject to suffering in this new birth too. A similar thought now is arising here, the five aggregates, and the result of the five aggregates is nothing but suffering. That's why Buddha said, 5 aggregates is suffering. Then one would ask the question, why is it that 5 aggregates is the cause of suffering? You produce desire as a result of object being received by the 6 sense bases. You see as a result of a thought you create. And that thought is nothing but the 5 aggregates. If the object is your satisfaction, you create a liking in that object and enjoys it. If it's not to your satisfaction, you create an attitude of aversion to that object. Both aversion and attachment create desire. Your desire is created that way. And who creates that desire? The 5 aggregates. The 5 aggregates create the desire. Because that is the last thought you had in the previous birth that reoccurred here. And in the new birth also you have the 5 aggregates, which is creating deception through your eye, through your ear, through your nose, through your tongue, through your body and through your mind. And you get attached to those objects. Or if it's not to your liking, you create an aversion to the object. Thereby attachment creates the liking, and disgust or dislike creates the aversion. These 2 extremes create the desire in you. That you must know. That is what you are now. We all possess the 5 aggregates now in our creation of the thought. And the result is that we are creating Dhamma. We do not see the true nature of things through the eye. We do not see the true nature of things through the ear, through the nose, through the tongue and through the body. Because the 5 aggregates creates a deception. And that you are completely misled. You see an object there. You see it as a result of a thought being created in you to enable to see. But you see that object as it is. Do you see any change in that object? But realistically, that object is nothing but a mass of movement. That object is impermanent. That is unsatisfactory. It does not continue to exist in the same condition 1 fraction of a second. But the thought that has created to enable you to see did not display that aspect of that object. That is what you are subject to now as a result of making use of your 6 sense bases with the 5 aggregate creation thought which enables you to perform the activities of 6 sense bases. You are completely misled. If you continue to exist in this form, there's no salvation for you. And what happens when you see an object? You create an attachment or an aversion. That's what the 5 aggregates perform the task of creating desire in you. And as a result of which, that attachment or aversion promotes desire in you. That is the cause of dukkha. And we have been continuing in this manner, brothers and sisters, being deceived by the mind for many, many births. And this fact should be known to you. Not only known to you, you must see it yourself. so that you could take necessary steps without delay to get rid of them. And that is the attainment of Nibbana. Third is the cessation of these 5 aggregates. How could that be done? This is a mental force. We are subject to 2 such forces, the mental and the physical. Attainment of Nibbana is analyzing the mental and the physical forces and ultimately realizing that there is nothing in them. That realization that helps you to stop further births and come to the end of your series of births and deaths that occur to you in samsara, life of such activity. Now how could this be done, brothers and sisters? The development of the mind, the first instance, having observed the 5 precepts or any other precepts which you are capable of observing, based on your virtue, you make an effort to develop your mind. This mind as it is deceptive. It's not showing the true nature of things through the 6 sense bases. In your undeveloped way, you believe the 6 sense bases, actually it's the 6 sense bases, and you are completely misled. And that this factor is the cause of your being born over and over and over again. At such time you realize the true nature of all your thoughts and see to the end of this, let's say, mental agony that you are going through. Now let us find out. As I told you, based on virtue, you develop your mind. Why should you develop your mind? Your concentration. Why should you do that? The normal mind is a mind that is always searching for objects to attract the bases. It doesn't, even for a moment, stay at one point. It's a movement. And in such a mind, you can't get any factual truth out of it. In other words, it cannot help you to realize the true nature of things because it is serving a purpose to completely mislead you in this life of yours. Always receiving object to the 6 sense bases and making you to believe that what you see is true, when actually such visions are created through the 6 sense bases by the 5 aggregates. So get rid of the 5 aggregates. What you should do is, this mind in this condition is weak, therefore to make it strong you must concentrate and develop your concentration to the 4 absorption levels. One would ask the question, why should I not have only the first absorption and then try the realization of truth? You can't, because the first absorption is not a perfect concentration. It cannot, in the first absorption, fix its mind to one point. It's shaky, moves about. Second absorption, there are feelings in that second absorption. Third absorption, also there are feelings. Those are deceptive. In the 4th absorption level, you can fix your mind at one point in a state of equanimity. What is equanimity? You do not allow the mind to move this way, to get attached to any object, or the other way to create an aversion to the object. The mind is in a state of equanimity, and it is that state of mind that will help you to realize the truth, brothers and sisters. That is why Buddha promoted that in developing your mind, You must read the first absorption level, second absorption level, third absorption level, fourth absorption level. And then, after reaching that level, you are going to, in 4 different stages, develop yourself to realize the true nature of all objects in this world. What is the true nature of all objects in the world? They're all impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless. These are the true 3 qualities, unshakable qualities existing in all objects in the world. As a human being, there are 10 defilements in you tying you down to this way of life. In the path shown by Buddha, having developed your mind to a state of equanimity in the 4th absorption level, you are going to get rid of these defilements one by one. In the first stage, 3. Second stage, 2. Third stage, balance of the second and the third stage. And the 4th stage is the final stage where you clear your mind of all defilements and you attain arahathood, where you really see the truth, realize the truth, and realize to that extent that you will be giving up all your future births you see, never to be born again in future lives. That's the development. So in the first stage, that is attainment of stream entry, called a sovan, you have to get rid of 3 defilements. First defilement is the creation of a false view in you that there is a being in you around the body you possess. That's called sakkaya ditthi in Pali. That you get rid of. You all have the belief that there is a being in me, and it is this being that is performing activities of the body. How should you get rid of that? You perform all your activities mindfully. When you perform the activities mindfully, the first thing that catches your imagination, your thought is, before I commit an act, a thought arises in me. And according to that thought, I perform the act. We will ask the next question, was there a person who directed you to commit that act? No, there was no person as such. All the activities I have committed during this period, I have been watching very carefully, and I only realize that a thought arises before I commit an act. And it is that thought that enables me to commit the act also. Thereby, by realizing that, you get into this false view that you have that there is a being in you. Next is doubt. You are clearing your doubt day by day. Now all of you are listening to discourses of this nature. You're developing your mind. Now you are going along the path shown by Buddha for your development. And this sort of activity on your part ultimately make you to believe, have faith in the triple gem, and create no doubt about their true nature. Buddha existed, he lived, and he realized this path. That realization produced the Dhamma. And those who followed that path attain arahathood, and they are the Sangha. So in the triple gem you have ample faith now. There is no doubt about that. In the third defilement that you have to get rid of before you attain the stream entry, you have a tendency to give up some of your good ways of conduct and copy some other ways which are not in keeping with your development of the mind along the right path. That doesn't occur in us. Some other, maybe belonging to other religions, may have that tendency, but as Buddhists, of course, we know that what is correct and what is true we are adopting and we are following. We are not pursuing to copy another manner of conduct belonging to another religion. That's Silabhata Paramas. Once you have given up these three defilements in you, then the next development that must occur in your mind is the development of impermanent, unsatisfactory nature of things and the soullessness. We have cleared the mind of an obstruction now. With that clearance, now you have got the ability to understand what is impermanence, unsatisfactory nature of the object, and also soullessness. And we give you sufficient encouragement, give you the subject of a thought that would create that development in you, and make you to meditate on that. And when you meditate on that, you see, you reach a stage when your mind automatically develops itself to a higher stage and the realization dawns to you. I would like to at this stage mention something which is not commonly thought of as something which one must bear in mind, because that mere samadhi will not help you to develop that stage, the 4 different stages. There was a Brahmin called Tapussa. Tapussa came to Venerable Anand and stated that all your brother bhikkhus they are following the path and they are maintaining a very sober state of mind. Is it due to the fact that they are all in samadhi? Venerable Ananda could not ask this question. He said, let's go and see the Buddha. They went to Buddha and Venerable Ananda told, my friend, he asked this question from me, I could not give an answer to that. Therefore I thought I would produce him before you. The question was that all of our brother bhikkhus are leading a very sober life, very settled life, and that's due to they being always in samadhi. Buddha said, I also thought so some time ago. I produced the first absorption in me, but I could not get rid of feelings and perception out of my mind. I entered the second stage, I entered the third stage of samadhi, I entered the fourth stage of samadhi. That there too I could not get rid of feelings and perceptions. Those are two false views created in every mind. And you know the illustration we gave to feeling. A bubble of water that arises as a drop of rain falls on the surface of the earth. And what is the illustration we gave to have an idea of what perceptions are? That's a mirage. So if these two things are existing in your mind, but development can take place in your mind to higher state of realization. Buddha said in the fourth stage even I could not get rid of these two. When he entered the fifth, sixth and the seventh and the eighth, arupa samadhi. That is not the normal first 4 samadhis, the normal samadhi we get taught, but beyond that is arupa lok means Brahma worlds. There too I could not get rid of, let us say, feelings and perception. And it is only after I left the 8th stage of samadhi and entered the sanya, vedita, nirodha that I managed to get rid of these two false views that exist in my mind. Therefore you can imagine that when you come to a stage of and the realization of that first stage will daunt you after it has risen to a very good height. You may not be able to assess it in the way you experience it, But the person who gives you instructions, when he hears that, and he questions you about what feelings you experience in developing your mind, he will be able to explain to you to satisfy him that he has now reached that higher level. Why I say that higher level must be reached by you for your development? Because anything lower than that, they are in the presence of feelings and perception. And only in the Nirodha level, that feelings and perceptions you get rid of. With feelings and perceptions which are deceptive, which are false, you cannot realize the truth, brothers and sisters. In the second stage, now you have become a stream enterer. That's the only activity you have to commit with earnestness to attain that is to develop your 4 states of samadhi. Then you are qualified to get rid of your defilements. Those defilements are not very firm defilements. It's the first defilement of creation of a being in you around this physical body you possess. That's the creation by the mind. But when you observe all your activities, as I told you, carefully, mindfully following every step you take, then you know that every act of yours you have committed as a result of a thought arising. Consequent to thought, you commit the act. When that realization dawns to you, you know that there is no being as such in me, that all my activities I commit as a result of a creation for thought. We come to the second stage of development. Second stage of development is giving up of attachment and aversion. Attachment and aversion are not created by the original thought you create in enabling to see, hear, smell, think and contact. 6 sense bases, the performance of the activities of 6 sense bases, the thought arises and enables you to perform that act. In that act, the first thought you create to commit that act, there is no aversion or attachment. It is the second thought that you create in your mind about the object that has appeared before you to perform the act of seeing or hearing or smelling or tasting or contact or thinking, that you follow this feeling and enjoy the feelings if it is to your satisfaction, and create an aversion to the feelings if it is not to your satisfaction. This aversion and attachment creates a desire. So what we do is, when you have reached the first stage, we ask you to be careful about, be mindful about the thinking process. Objects appear before you. You create a thought and see the object. But don't allow the mind to either create an attachment to the object or an aversion to that object. If you allow that, you promote desire. Likewise, you are made to be very, very careful about your thinking process. And that's the very thing the 4 foundations of mindfulness has instructed us to perform, to do. I will repeat a part of that in Pali so that you could, I will translate that to you later. If, for instance, if a reflection of a body, or let's say thought about the body of another arises in your mind as a result of seeing or hearing or smelling or tasting or contacting through any of the 6 sense bases, what you are expected to do is mindfully Atapi sampajano satima, atapi, with effort, using your mind and being mindful of the true nature of that object, that it is impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless. Do not allow your mind to create an attachment to the object or an aversion to the object. That's the instructions given in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. We make you to follow the same instructions. Be careful about your eyes, careful about your ears, careful about the other 6 sense bases. When objects create thoughts To perform the active six sense bases, mindfully you must be careful to consider all those objects that arise before you as impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless, and push them out. Don't allow your mind to create an attachment or an aversion. When you are very carefully following the path, very observant, always watching the mind, it creates thoughts, but you do not permit that thought to create an attachment to aversion. You dispel the object of the thought as impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless. When you get used to that pattern of existence, brothers and sisters, you yourself will feel that mind, thinking process is there, but few thoughts are arising now. Why? Because we are fully observing the mind and do not permit thought to arise and create that aversion or attachment. Dispel them by concerning the object that creates that situation in you as impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless. When you reduce such thoughts, little by little, your mind settles down. Few thoughts are created now by the mind because you are fully watching the mind, not allowing the mind to create this aversion or attachment whereby desire is created. And when you have reduced the number of thoughts about 50% of the normal condition, you are qualified to enter the second stage of development, Sakuddhagami, which is once eternal. To proceed with that process further, be watchful about the mind. Do not allow the mind to create an attachment to aversion in regard to any object that attracts the sense bases. You consider all those objects as impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless, and dispel the thought, subject to the thought. And you will see that the balance, 50% of the desire that is in you gets reduced automatically, because there is no feeding done. Mind you, in your original process of thinking, there is no desire. Desire is a habit which you have created in the mind, and that habit will remain so long as you feed the habit. Now we are not permitted to feed the habit, we are watchful about any activity taking place in the mind in order to feed the habit, obstruct that and say, no, it is impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless, therefore you do not permit the mind to create an attachment to aversion. As a result, you will find there will be a clear reduction of thoughts. You see, but you do not allow that vision to create the attachment to aversion in your mind. You hear, you would not allow that noise to create an attachment to aversion in your mind. You also perform the activities, other six sense bases, other bases, but you will not allow this creation of the extreme in going into, let's say, attachment or aversion of the object that has attracted sense base. And thereby, as you go on doing like that, there comes a stage, your mind will be peaceful, brothers and sisters. You can get to a side and then be watchful about the mind, and for not only 5 minutes, not only 10 minutes, not only half an hour, not only 1 hour, even more, you can maintain your mind completely free of all thoughts, completely free, very peaceful and very delightful existence. And that is the development that occurs in you when you get rid of desire. Desire is the result of the creation of attachment to aversion in regard to all objects that attract the six sense bases. If you dispel those thoughts, I told you that it is a habit. This attachment to aversion is a habit you have created in the mind. Desire too is not the quality of the mind, is something which you have, something foreign to the mind, but you have created that defilement in the mind, and you are feeding it regularly. Or if you, when you get up in the morning, you perform the activities of six sense bases. But are you watchful of what is happening to you? If you see something beautiful, don't you get attracted to that? If it is not to your liking, don't you create an aversion to that? In getting to these two extremes, what are you doing? You are feeding the mind, feeding the desire in you. But we are watchful about that and truly understand the nature of all things around you. If something comes to your vision, and you mindfully treat that vision as something impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless, then there cannot be any attachment to aversion. Unless attachment and aversion takes place in your mind, there is no desire. As I told you, desire is something foreign to you, which you have created and which you are maintaining. If you take positive steps to get rid of that, you are capable of getting rid of it. But it must be done in a systematic manner. Step by step, step by step. And once you have got rid of your desire, then you enter the third stage of anagama. Beyond that stage is the understanding clearly who your I is. The creation of the mind by the use of the I, and also the belief you have embedded in your mind that you continue to exist in this world without a break. Continuity of life. These are the three things that you're going to tackle after that. Who created these things? The five aggregates. Therefore, Buddha says, now, in order to get rid of this false impression created in you that there is a so-called I in you, which is your ego, what you are expected to do is analyze the five aggregates carefully as impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless. Each of those. Consciousness is impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless. Contact is impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless. Feelings impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless. Perception impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless. And volitional activity impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless. Continue that meditation. Ending always that meditation with the conclusion that there is no I in me, there is nothing called mine in me, and there is no continuity of a life as a soul in me. You must repeat that very often. When you go on repeating that and then meditating on that aspect of the five aggregates as impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless, then you will be able to get rid of this I. That's the ego. You also will be able to get rid of mind. When there's no I, there's no possibility of creating as the possessor of those things. Mind is not there. And of course, the realization dawns to you that there is no soul continuing in this life. Then the final stage comes where you have to now take steps to see to the end of this so-called consciousness that is creating all this deception in you, misleading you completely and make you to lead a life in this cycle of birth endlessly. For that purpose, to clear the mind of all its defilements, you practice the 7 factors of enlightenment. You develop your mind along that path. And ultimately you come to a state when your mind is in a state of equanimity, peaceful. Now it has got rid of desire. It has got rid of its personality belief. The mind has got rid of this ego. There is no I or mine in you now. There's nothing called a soul in the nature of a self continuing to exist in you. That also you have got rid of. And you begin to ultimately analyze this thinking process as something impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless. And what happens? You reach a stage when you lose all feelings about the world around you, including your body. It's only the mind. You have lost this creation of a world around you that's created by the five aggregates. You have lost that now. This mind is also created by your consciousness. It's a perception. You lose that too. There is a mind now only. It develops a certain samadhi without an object called animitta samadhi. And you live in that. You go on analyzing this thinking process as something impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless. Till such time you reach a stage when all feelings disappear from you. You have got rid of your mind. Consciousness does not appear in future before you. And in regard to the world created by your mind, you have seen to the end of that world as a result of the realization of impermanent, unsatisfactory nature of the soullessness. And that is how you reach the end of your lifespan. Depriving yourself of a possibility of another birth in time to come. Because there is no consciousness here. If the consciousness is not there, what is it that will pass out of your body to be born again? Nothing. The consciousness by itself could not do that task except with the help given by the desire. Desire you have got rid of early stages. Now you have come to the stage when you have got rid of consciousness too. And the result is now you are no longer existing in this world as being. So long as the lifespan exists, you will live. But that life is free from all defilements. Just the thought existing to maintain your body and mind, to perform the normal functions of a human being. Free from any attachment or aversion, thereby not creating desire. You only perform the activities, and at the end of your lifespan you pass away, never to be born again. And that is the Nibbana that you search for, brothers and sisters. You don't want to be born again and go through this life which you are leading now. Maybe that life which you may get in the next birth may be worse than this. We cannot predict as to what you are going to be in the next birth. All depends upon creation of the thought in you, the last thought that occurs in your mind prior to death taking place, this body reducing itself to the four elements. Therefore, brothers and sisters, this is a clear path that one can follow. There's no doubt about the outcome of what you are doing, because it clearly shows that there is no being on this earth. That is all the mental creation by us. There is only mind and matter, both getting together created this false impression into that there is a being. As you go on, getting rid of the defilements that you have been subject to, you will realize the true nature of yourself and finally end your lifespan never to be born again. May you all attain Nibbana.